Hi, I'm Scott McLean from TranceMusicMastery.com. In this video, I will show you how Adam Sabo created a lead sound like the one heard in Valley of Dreams, original mix by Rex Mundi. The sound that Adam created sounds like this. Okay, let's get started. Let me go ahead and walk through the MIDI sequence. I'll just move these windows out of the way for a moment. And the notes, fairly simple MIDI sequence here. We've got G and C, and then C and D sharp, A sharp and D, F and A sharp and D, and G and C. So let me just play through it with the sequence. Okay, and I'm going to bring up the sound map. And Adam Sabo says, layer several detuned pulse oscillator and vary the pulse width a little on each of them to make it sound more interesting and full. Delay and reverb for a nice big trance sound. So he's using 3 oscillators. Oscillator 1 and 2 are using 11 stacked pulse waves for each oscillator. And oscillator 3 is using a quad 4 stacked pulse waves. Those then flow into a filter configured as LP mid-drive, with the cutoff frequency being modulated by envelope 2 with 0 attack, medium decay, sustain at 0, and fast release. And then that flows into an amplifier with volume being modulated by envelope 1 with 0 attack, medium decay, sustain at 87.5 or 87.5%, and fast release. And then that flows into the effects and to the main output. And for the effects, we're using an EQ to put a 2.5 dB boost near 2 kHz and a plus 6 dB boost near 5 kHz. And then that flows into a compressor with long attack, long release. The delay is configured so that the left channel is a 1/8 delay and right is 1/4. And then feedback 43.5 mixed in at 35%. And then that flows into a reverb with approximately a 4-second reverb tail, low dampening for bright reverb. Alright, let's go ahead and build this patch. Okay, I'm starting from the initialized patch, and let me just play the sequence with this. Okay, and for oscillator 1, we want to set the stacking to 11, and for this, we want to create a pulse wave, and to do that, right now we've got a saw wave here. We're going to select invert, and remember that creates a copy of the wave, an inverted copy. So there's actually 2 waves now being created, in this wave and then the inverted copy of the wave. And if we increase the phase amount, then that's going to determine the width of the pulse. So I'm going to increase the phase amount to 11.5. And then detune these waves from one another. Set detune to 10. So that helps to fatten up the sound. And set the soft to crisp, which helps brighten it up some. Okay, next add oscillator 2. And for oscillator 2, we're going to set its voices to 11. And invert it as well, or create an inverted copy, and set the phase amount to 18. And set detune to 21. And we're also going to set crisp on oscillator 2. Okay, next add oscillator 3, and for this one we want to set it to quad, add an inverted copy, increase the phase amount to 14, increase the detune to help fatten it up even more. We're going to set this to 11.5. And we're going to increase the volume level on oscillator 3 So increase that to 136. Alright, next let's configure the envelope. And for the envelope, we're going to have 0 attack. We're going to bring the decay down to 38. And increase the sustain just a bit, set that to 87.5. And then bring the release up to 21.5. So we can start to hear a little bit of a decay there. And set the velocity to 0. Okay, next let's add a filter. So add VCF1. So before we add the filter, and then with the filter, I'm now going to set the filter to LP mid drive. In fact, I'll do that halfway through the sequence. So there's a subtle change there in the upper frequencies, even with the cutoff all the way at maximum. We're going to bring cutoff down to 146. And modulate that with ENV2 and increase the modulation amount to 38. And now let's set ENV2, set the attack to 0, set the decay to 25. Sustain's going to be at 0, so I'm going to bring the sustain down and then adjust the decay time. And again, I'm setting decay time at 25. And for this, it's probably better to bring the cutoff down a bit as we set these. So let me return these back. So if we say, let's say, set cutoff to 89 while we're configuring the envelope. So I'll bring the sustain down to 0 and then the decay time to 25. So it starts to get a bit of a plucky sound to it. And then set the release, leave that at 15, and set the velocity to 0. Okay, so now we can vary the cutoff, and this would be something that we might want to do with modulation if we were using the sound in a track. So I'll just demonstrate that real quick. If we wanted to automate the cutoff frequency and do sort of a sweep. You know, something like that. So let me return this to 146. Okay, so now we have the basic setup of the oscillators, the filter, and the envelopes. Next, let's go ahead and configure. And for oscillator 3, we left it at soft. We're not changing that one to crisp, just to point that out if I didn't earlier in the video. So let's go ahead and do the effects now. So now we will add an EQ. And we're not going to use the first two filters. So for filter 3, we're going to put a plus 2.5 dB boost just below 3 kilohertz, right about here. And bring the resonance down to widen the bandwidth of that peak. We're setting the resonance on filter 3 to 6. Next, I want to put a plus 6 dB boost in just below 5.5 kilohertz with filter number 4. This is the high shelf filter, so this will have the effect of lifting all of the high frequencies above it. And we leave the resonance at its default value of 25. Okay, next is the compressor. So we will add a compressor. And for the compressor, we're going to set it to strong. And I'm going to increase the threshold and then lower it to minus 7.5. Increase attack to 50 and release to 46. Or actually lower the release to 46. And the compressor is helping to accentuate the attack on this sound. Next, bring the compressor mix. I'm going to bring it all the way down to 0, which would be uncompressed. This is just the dry signal. I'm going to bring it up to 26.5. Okay, so now with and without compression. So it has a much harder hit, harder attack with the compressor. Next, we're going to add delay. And for this one, we're going to use sync 1. We're going to set that to 1/4, and sync 2. Just leave those both at 1/4, sync 1 and 2. And then feedback, we're going to increase that to 43.5, and mix, we'll set that to 35. And then crossback, I'm going to bring that to 0. So I'll just play through it and make those adjustments. Okay, that takes care of the reverb. And we do want to set ratio to 50, which has the effect of changing the sync 1. It scales the sync 1 time by 50%. So in effect, this becomes a 1/8 on the left and a 1/4 on the right delay time. So let me decrease ratio to 50. Okay, so you can hear that left-right delay now. Now let's add a reverb. And for this, we're going to leave the dry at 82. We want to increase the wet to 64. And we're going to leave the range at 75. Leave pre-delay at 0. Increase the feedback to 58.50. We're going to make the reverb a little brighter, so we're going to lower the damp to 1.5. And then set speed to 42.5 and modulation to 29. And that concludes the patch. So let me just play through it one more time. I'll bring up the spectrum analyzer here. This is the patch. I'll see you in the next video.